Good morning, beautiful souls. I want to talk to you today about something that changed my life. Something that doesn't come in a textbook, but is written deep in your spirit. That truth is this: success is 80% psychology and only 20% skill. Mindset shapes reality. Your belief about what's possible influences what becomes possible. You know, we often think that our circumstances define our success. But let me challenge that idea, because what truly shapes your reality isn't what's happening around you. It's what's happening within you. Your mindset, your internal map of the world, becomes the lens through which you interpret everything. And here's the truth: that interpretation is far more powerful than the event itself. Two people can experience the exact same failure. One sees a dead end, the other sees a lesson. Same moment, different mindset. One moves forward, one shuts down. Why? Because mindset is not just belief, it's the architect of perception. It determines whether we see obstacles as barriers or blueprints. And psychology teaches us this over and over again. What you focus on expands. When you focus on what you lack, you amplify your limitations. But when you focus on potential, opportunity begins to appear, not because it wasn't there before, but because your mind wasn't tuned in. Even neuroscience confirms it. The brain is wired to respond to expectation. If you expect success, your brain begins filtering the world to find evidence that supports that belief. That's not magic. That's mindset creating momentum. So let me say this to you: if your life isn't where you want it to be, don't just upgrade your skills. Upgrade your story. Because until you change your mindset, you will continue to recreate the same results in different packaging. Your mindset is not a mirror, it's a master key. Use it. Self-talk drives self-worth. The way you talk to yourself either builds your future or buries your potential. Let's talk about the voice inside your head, because whether you realize it or not, it's the most influential voice you'll ever hear. Your self-talk is the running commentary that shapes your identity, your choices, and ultimately your destiny. And what's so fascinating, and often overlooked, is that this internal dialogue isn't passive, it's creative. It doesn't just describe your world, it builds it. Every time you say, "I'm not good at this," your brain isn't just hearing a statement, it's encoding a belief. And beliefs become boundaries, but when you say, "I can figure this out," you begin to rewire your own limitations. That shift may seem small, but psychologically it's profound. The words you speak to yourself create the framework of your self-worth. Philosophers have long said, "We become what we repeatedly do." But in truth, we also become what we repeatedly say, especially when no one's listening but us. And the danger is that many of us have inherited inner voices that aren't even ours. Voices of doubt from childhood, criticism from broken systems, or silence from moments where we needed support but got nothing. We internalize those echoes and they become our narrative. But here's the breakthrough: you can choose to rewrite that script. You can choose to speak life instead of lack, truth instead of fear. You can train yourself to become a tool for transformation. Because if your inner voice isn't empowering you, it's imprisoning you. And that choice is yours every single day. Emotional mastery unlocks consistency. Learning to manage your emotions helps you stay committed through highs and lows. Let's explore something we don't talk about enough: emotional mastery. The ability to manage your internal emotional world is one of the most underappreciated components of success. Yet, it's the very thing that determines your consistency, because let's be honest, it's not talent that keeps people stuck. It's the inability to stay centered when life doesn't go as planned. Emotions are not interruptions to our productivity. They are part of the equation. And if you don't learn how to work with them, they will quietly work against you. Think about it. How many brilliant people abandon their goals not because they weren't capable, but because they got overwhelmed, frustrated, disappointed. They didn't fail due to lack of skill. They failed due to lack of emotional regulation. And here's the deeper truth. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean suppressing them. It means learning how to interpret what they're telling you without being hijacked by them. It's knowing the difference between a temporary feeling and a permanent truth. It's the practice of pausing, of recognizing this is discomfort, not disaster, and still choosing to show up. This is where psychology becomes power, because when you learn to respond instead of react, you begin to reclaim your ability to lead your life, not just survive it. Emotional mastery is not about controlling your feelings, it's about not letting your feelings control your future. And that power is already in you, waiting to be practiced, not just possessed. Vision is more powerful than skill set, a clear why. Fuels growth more than technical know how alone. Now let's talk about vision, not as a buzzword, but as the psychological driver behind every meaningful achievement. Vision is more than a dream, it's a decision. It's the ability to see something internally before there's any evidence of it externally. And that ability to imagine, to anticipate, to believe, has more impact on your trajectory than any technical skill ever could. See, skills can be taught. Vision must be cultivated. It comes from a place deep within you, and knowing that what you're building matters, even if no one else sees it yet. That kind of clarity fuels a level of persistence that talent alone can't sustain. Because skill may open a door, but vision is what keeps you walking through the hard rooms. In psychological terms, vision gives meaning to effort. It connects your actions to a larger purpose, and purpose creates endurance. Without it, even gifted people quit. They get lost in the grind. But when you have a vision, setbacks become scenery, not stop signs. You begin to see failure not as rejection, but as redirection. And philosophically, vision is the bridge between your current reality and your desired identity. It helps you live from your future self, not just your present limitations. That changes everything. So, if you feel stuck, don't just ask, what do I need to learn? Ask, what do I need to see? Because when the mind has a clear vision, the body finds a way. Always, resilience is a mental habit, not a trait you build bounce. Back power through perspective and practice. Let's look at resilience not as something you're born with, but something you build. We tend to think of resilience as a personality trait, as if some people just have it, and others don't. But that's not true. Resilience is a psychological skill, shaped by how you interpret adversity and how you choose to respond to it. It's not about being unaffected by pain or pressure. It's about how you relate to it. Resilience is the habit of recovering, of rising back up again and again, not because life is easy, but because you've trained your mind to see setbacks differently. It's a mental reframe. Where some see failure, the resilient see feedback. Where some internalize rejection, they extract information. They ask better questions. They redirect energy. They refuse to let difficulty become identity. And here's the key. Resilience isn't forged in the big, dramatic moments. It's built in the small, daily choices to not give up. It's in deciding that a bad day is not a bad life. It's in the quiet courage of trying again when no one's watching. That's the internal structure that sustains long-term success, not talent, but tenacity. The truth is, you don't find resilience by avoiding struggle. You find it by going through it and choosing not to surrender your story to circumstance. So remember this. Resilience isn't what keeps you from falling. It's what ensures you rise differently each time you do. Skills without psychology are tools without a hand. You can be capable but stuck until your mind is aligned with your mission. Let's be honest, skills are important. But in the absence of the right mindset, they're like tools with no hands to use them. You can be highly competent and still feel stuck. You can know exactly how to succeed and still hesitate to act. Why? Because the mind drives behavior, not information. And until your psychology supports your skill set, you will constantly undermine your own potential. Think about this. We've all met people who are brilliant, smart, trained, experienced, and yet they guess themselves out of opportunities. They wait to feel ready. They defer to doubt. That's not a skill problem. That's a psychology issue. Because no matter how many strategies you have, you still need the courage to use them, the belief to trust them, and the emotional capacity to navigate failure when things don't go as planned. This is where the gap shows up. It's not about learning more. It's about unlearning the fear that stops you from applying what you already know. Skills can build a career, but it's psychology that builds a life, a meaningful, bold, resilient life. So before you go chasing more knowledge, ask yourself if your mindset is prepared to carry it. Because unless your psychology is aligned with your purpose, even the best tools will sit idle. The most powerful person in the room isn't always the most skilled. It's the one whose mind is trained to believe, to endure, and to act. Train that mind, and the rest will follow.